Hi, my name is Azda. Today, I want to share an experience I had just a few days before graduation. Our senior class had a picnic before the big day, and I decided to swim out to a raft by myself. While I was swimming, I suddenly got cramps. I started to drown, and I ended up dying. I was pulled into the light, and then, somehow, I came back. First of all, the experience of drowning was far from pleasant. It was terrifying and painful. I felt trapped at the bottom of the lake, my entire body aching in ways I can't describe. I was desperate for air, and all I could think about was getting just one breath. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it. Then, a voice inside my head spoke to me, saying, "AA, you need to rest for just a moment." I responded, "No, I can't rest. I have to get to the surface for air." But when I tried to get up, I realized my hands were stuck in the mud. I couldn't move. It was like I was imprisoned. The voice spoke again. "AA, you can keep struggling, or you can rest just for a moment." I finally agreed to rest, telling the voice, "Okay, just for a minute, and then I'll keep going." As soon as I let go, I felt a strange sensation, like I was being pulled out of my body. Suddenly, I was above it, looking down at my body stuck in the mud. But here's the thing, I still felt like I was in a body. I wasn't cold or stuck anymore. Instead, I was warm, and a sense of love and peace washed over me. Something so profound, it's beyond words. I found myself in a place that was beyond description, neither here nor there. It was an ethereal realm where time and space didn't seem to matter. The whole place glowed with a soft, golden light, filling everything with warmth and serenity. The peace I felt there was unlike anything I had ever known. And then I saw them, the beings. They were made of pure light, but somehow I could sense human and divine features in them. Their love and wisdom were so overwhelming that I felt completely at ease, even though the situation was so otherworldly. Among them, one being stood out more than the rest. His presence was powerful but gentle. His light was brighter, more intense. As he approached me, I felt a deep reverence, almost awe. Even though he didn't speak with words, his presence conveyed something to my soul that I could feel with all my being. It became clear to me that this was Jesus, the very embodiment of divine love and compassion. When he looked into my eyes, I felt all my fears and doubts melt away. He reached out to me, though there was no physical touch. Yet, I felt an overwhelming warmth and reassurance pass through me. His presence told me everything I needed to know. I was safe, I was loved, and I had a purpose to fulfill. Without words, he communicated something important to me. I understood that the years ahead would be filled with challenges, misunderstandings, and great trials. His message was clear. His children must pray, and pray fervently, that only God's will comes to pass. I understood that the next 6 years would be a time of hardship for Christians everywhere. And he made it clear that I had a duty to share this message with the world. I felt a gentle pull, and suddenly, I found myself standing in the middle of a battlefield. The sky was thick with smoke, and the air was heavy with the sharp smell of burning debris. All around me, soldiers from different times and places were scattered, their faces twisted in pain and anguish. The ground beneath me was covered in the aftermath of countless battles, broken weapons, torn uniforms, and the lifeless bodies of those who had fought and fallen. The cries of the wounded and dying echoed all around me, a haunting chorus of suffering. I could feel their pain deep within me, as if it were my own, a sorrow so intense it seemed endless. Then the scene shifted, and I was moving through different moments in history, each one marked by conflict and destruction. From ancient wars fought with swords and shields to modern battles with tanks and guns, The devastation remained the same. The countless lives lost, the grief of families torn apart, and the despair of communities destroyed. I saw faces from every corner of the globe, men, women, and children, trapped in the unforgiving grip of war. It was a never-ending cycle of violence, each war feeding the next, leaving only death and ruin in its wake. The weight of the suffering was overwhelming, pressing down on my heart. I felt the tears on my face, silent witnesses to the endless tragedies unfolding before me. Then, Jesus spoke again. Not with words, but with thoughts that filled my mind with deep clarity and compassion. Man will prey on man until man will pray for man, he said. At that moment, I understood that the vision wasn't just a reflection of the past and present. It was a warning for the future. The scene shifted again, and I was standing on a high cliff, looking out over a vast ocean. The sky was dark, thick with heavy clouds, and the air was thick with the sense of an incoming storm. Below me, the ocean churned violently, waves crashing against the shore with terrifying force. I watched in horror as the water began to rise, swallowing the land. The vision moved quickly, showing floods overtaking cities and towns across the world. One moment, I was in a busy city, watching people scramble for higher ground, their faces full of fear. The water kept rising, relentlessly taking over buildings, cars, and everything else in its path. I could hear the desperate cries for help, the frantic calls of parents looking for their children, and the eerie silence that followed when the floodwaters claimed their victims. I was then transported to rural landscapes, where vast fields of crops were being swallowed by the relentless tide. The loss wasn't just of human life. It was the very source of sustenance for entire communities. Livestock and wild animals alike were carried away, their bodies dragged into the dark abyss. The smell of death hung in the air, a haunting reminder of the destruction left behind by the flood. Before I could fully process the magnitude of the devastation, the vision changed again. I now found myself standing at the base of a towering volcano, its peak cloaked in smoke and ash. The ground beneath me began to tremble, and I stood frozen in a mixture of awe and fear as the volcano erupted with a deafening roar. Molten lava surged forth, a river of fire consuming everything in its path. Entire towns and villages were buried under the scorching flood of flames, their inhabitants helpless against the inferno. "There will come a time when all of this will happen at once," he said. "It will come during man's greatest sins." No sooner had he spoken these words than the scene shifted again, and I found myself standing on solid ground, surrounded by towering skyscrapers and bustling streets. It was a familiar sight, a thriving city full of life and energy. But the calm I felt was a false one, a mere glimpse of the chaos about to unfold. Without warning, the ground beneath me began to shake. At first, it was just a slight tremor, barely noticeable, but within moments, it grew into a violent shake that threw people and buildings into panic. I watched in horror as the earth cracked open, swallowing entire buildings and leaving behind gaping chasms. The sound was deafening. Glass shattering, concrete crumbling, and anguished cries filling the air. The earthquake didn't stop. It was relentless, ripping apart everything in its path. Skyscrapers, once towering symbols of human achievement, toppled like fragile dominoes, reduced to piles of twisted metal and rubble. As the vision continued, I was transported to different places around the world, each scene more devastating than the last. In one moment, I was in a city in America, watching as a massive quake flattened entire neighborhoods. The ground buckled and heaved, sending cars tumbling off the road, and people scrambled for safety. The scale of the destruction was almost beyond comprehension. Throughout these visions, light remained by my side, a constant presence amidst the chaos. His voice, calm and steady, cut through the noise and confusion. "There will not only be more of what you have seen," he said, "but there will come a time when it will all happen at once. It will come during the era of man's greatest sins." His words were a prophecy, a warning of a future where natural disasters would converge. As the vision unfolded, I was drawn to a particularly catastrophic scene, a massive earthquake in a place called Eureka. The ground split open with a force so intense it seemed to shake the very earth itself. Buildings crumbled, and the landscape was permanently altered. But even in the midst of this destruction, there were signs of hope. People were coming together, helping each other. "There will come a time when all of this will happen at once. It will be a time of great tribulation, but also of great opportunity," he said. His message was clear, a call to action for all of humanity. Then he showed me the greed, arrogance, and indifference that had consumed human history. Wars fought for power and wealth, leaving devastation in their wake. Injustices passed down through generations, driven by a hunger for dominance. The reckless exploitation of the earth's resources without concern for future generations. Jesus spoke again, "Man will prey on man until man will pray for man." And through all of it, I was there. I found myself on the beach, my friends pushing the water from my lungs. I coughed and began to regain consciousness. I was crying, but not because of the pain of drowning. I cried because I was no longer in the light. I was back in my body, back on earth, and I longed to be in that light once more. From the moment I began sinking into the water and the mud, until the moment I coughed the water from my lungs, I lost consciousness. I wasn't aware of every second of that time, but in the light, there was nothing but unconditional love. And that love, unconditional forgiveness, fills you with such peace that you can't help but smile forever. Thank you for listening to this experience until the end. If you found this story meaningful, please like and share this video. And if you're new to our channel, please subscribe for more content that will uplift and inspire you. Thank you.